Hi, creative friends. Thank you so much for being here. So, today I wanted to open up one of my art journals and talk about how I approach my page. Every single time I open up my art journal, there are three main points that I try to keep in mind. The very first one is that I try to leave my ego behind. Now, this is much easier said than done, but the reason why I want to do this is because I don't want to be emotionally and psychologically invested in creating a quote unquote beautiful spread. Now, generally, art journals tend to be private, but of course, with social media, we can choose to share them. And it can be really tricky to not get caught up in creating work solely for people to like. I mean, if people like your work, that's great, but it shouldn't be the main driver of why I create my work. And if I get too caught up in the likes and the comments and the positive feedback, it can really start to affect my work. So I really try to detach. And for me, that means letting go of my ego. Now, the second thing I try to do is I start with an intention, which is the exact same every single time. And that's for me to show up authentically. I want to create a visual language that is solely my own. The colors that I use, the marks that I use, the color combinations, those are all part of me expressing myself. It's my language. And it's how I can express my unconscious mind, my feelings, my thoughts. And sometimes it might not be pretty or likable or even interesting. Like sometimes it might just be really blah. And that's okay because it's about the process and the journey. It's not about the finished page, which brings me to my third point, and that's where I want to let go of the outcome. Simply get out of my own way. Many years ago, I was so caught up in painting a certain type of face, and my work was too stilted and too tight and controlled. And now, when I look back on those earlier works, I absolutely cringe. But I have to extend myself some grace because that's where I started on my journey. And even now, it's a huge struggle for me to really let go, to relax, to play, to experiment, to listen deeply to my intuitive self, to slow down. Like over here, I'm just experimenting with marks, with color combinations, with my pen. There's no image on here on this page, but that's a part of my art journaling process as well. So if I want to paint 11 suns or flowers growing out of a head or say a blue face and I just go with it, I don't want to listen to my inner critic that's going to tell me, oh, that's ridiculous, that's dumb, that's ugly, that's crazy. There's no such thing as, this or that, because part of me telling my story in my own way is to take all those critical thoughts aside, and it's an unlearning process. It's beginner's mind. And like over here, this red, this little bit of red here, well, what is that red? Well, it doesn't have to be anything. It's a beautiful color, and maybe that means something to me. Maybe the color means a certain emotion, or these lines, or marks. Sometimes it's just about following what you want to express. And in this way, art journaling becomes one way in which I can be fully present in the moment, where I can ask myself, what are the stories I want to tell through my art? What are the stories that only I can tell in my own way? And it's become such a practice for me, and it's been a huge gift. And so those are the three ways that I approach my art journal. And I hope that it gave you some inspiration and it gave you some food for thought, and maybe it gave you a fresh perspective. If you have any comments or tips to share of your own, I would love to hear them. And I think that's it. The rest of the pages are blank. So if you watched all the way to the end, thank you so much.